For centuries, people have lifted their eyes and instruments to the night sky, pointing telescopes at the vastness above in the hope of discovering something, anything, that might prove we are not alone. Countless dreams and theories have revolved around the idea that one day a message would come, perhaps from a distant star or an advanced civilization light years away. But when that long-awaited moment finally arrived, it was not from an intergalactic civilization or a shadowy organization. It came from something far stranger and closer to home, a mysterious object from another star system that passed into ours, known as 3I Atlas. From the very beginning, Atlas baffled scientists. Its emerald glow pulsed with a strange rhythm. Its sudden surges of energy defied every model they had, and its behavior bore no resemblance to any comet, asteroid, or rogue body we had ever recorded. And yet, the deeper they looked, the more unsettling the picture became. Observatories and instruments scattered across the planet began to detect that Atlas's light was not random at all. The energy was structured, controlled, and astonishingly directed. It wasn't just shining into the void, it was targeting Mars with concentrated bursts of power, as if trying to speak. Even the most skeptical voices in the scientific community, those who built their careers on caution and disbelief, were left stunned by what followed. Mars, a planet long thought silent and barren, responded. For the first time in human history, something that originated beyond our solar system appeared to be communicating with a neighboring world. If this astonishing possibility holds true, the consequences would ripple through everything we think we know, our understanding of the universe, of Mars itself, and of humanity's place within the grand cosmic order. As with many paradigm-shifting discoveries, this one began quietly. The first observations were dismissed as errors or anomalies, data too bizarre to accept. Researchers had already documented Atlas's predictable light cycles. Its green luminescence brightened and dimmed in a flawless rhythm, repeating every 173 minutes with mechanical precision. Such regularity was no coincidence. It hinted at intent, at design. But then, amid the familiar pulses, something new emerged. A signal unlike the rest, one that didn't fit the established pattern and suggested a deeper, more deliberate message was waiting to be understood. Unlike the usual cosmic phenomena that scatter and fade into the emptiness of space, this was different. The energy pouring out of Atlas was focused, narrow, and deliberate. More like a finely tuned beam than a random burst. Its path was precise, aimed directly at Mars as if guided by intention rather than chance. Almost immediately, orbiters and probes circling the red planet detected the incoming stream of radiation. The intensity was staggering, so powerful that it pierced through Mars's thin, fragile atmosphere and caused the planet itself to glow with a haunting green light for several minutes, an eerie signal that something extraordinary was happening. At first, the scientific community hesitated to draw conclusions. Many dismissed it as a fleeting anomaly, perhaps a trick of light, a coincidence in solar activity, or some quirk in the instruments. It was easy to believe it was a one-time event until it happened again. The same beam, the same duration, the same strength, the same origin. It was no longer plausible to explain it away as an accident. Atlas was sending a signal. Purposeful, intentional, and unwavering. It had chosen a destination, and for reasons humanity could only begin to guess at, that destination was Mars. For the first time in our species' history, there was evidence that an object from beyond our solar system had not only arrived, but deliberately pointed its message toward a specific world. What came next was even more astonishing. The response didn't take days or weeks to materialize. It began almost immediately. Satellites orbiting Mars started detecting faint electromagnetic emissions rising from the planet's surface. These weren't random bursts or static noise. They were signals. More intriguingly, they matched the frequency of the transmissions coming from Atlas. But they weren't simple reflections. Something about them was altered, modified, as though Mars itself, or something on it, was taking the original message and reshaping it before sending it back into space. Initially, many researchers believed these could be natural echoes, perhaps caused by interactions within Mars's weak magnetic field, but deeper analysis told another story. The signals weren't bouncing aimlessly, and they were arriving at perfectly measured intervals, their timing precise to the millisecond. Their frequencies too showed deliberate variations, subtle shifts that looked far more like a code than a coincidence. Then came the discovery that truly stunned the world. Telescopes on Earth began picking up those same altered signals, now faint but unmistakable, traveling across the void. Mars wasn't merely reflecting the message, it seemed to be amplifying it, processing it, and sending it back out into the cosmos. To those who carefully studied the data, it appeared as though Atlas had posed a question, and Mars, against every expectation, had responded. The language of this strange dialogue wasn't one humanity could yet decipher, but the pattern was undeniable. Atlas spoke first, and Mars answered in kind, reshaping the message into its own unique version. In an astonishing turn of events, a world long believed to be silent and barren had suddenly become part of a cosmic conversation. Its thin, windswept atmosphere and cold, rust-colored surface now hummed with purpose, carrying the resonance of an interstellar exchange that no one had ever imagined possible. Then the mystery deepened. Seismometers scattered across Mars, relics of earlier missions, long assumed to be dormant or destined only to measure geological tremors, began registering something they had never detected before. The planet was shaking, but not in the chaotic, unpredictable way typical of seismic activity. Instead, the vibrations followed a rhythm perfectly synchronized with the pulses arriving from Atlas. These weren't ordinary quakes, they were structured, precise, as if Mars itself had become an instrument playing in harmony with the distant visitor. The tremors reached deep into the planet's interior, suggesting that the entire world, from crust to core, was resonating in response. The strangeness didn't end there. When scientists converted these seismic waves into visual representations, they were stunned by what they saw. The vibrations weren't random noise. They formed coherent geometric patterns, spirals, hexagons, triangles, all echoing the luminous designs that had been observed in the light around Atlas. This was far too deliberate to be coincidence. Mars wasn't merely bouncing signals back into space. It was participating, speaking in its own way through the language of the planet itself. The implications divided the scientific community. Some speculated that Atlas's signal might have triggered something buried deep beneath Mars's surface. Perhaps the remains of an ancient structure, a hidden ocean, or even a dormant technology lying in wait. Others proposed something even more radical, that Mars itself might possess a kind of planetary consciousness, a living, responsive system that had been stirred into action by the visitor's message. What had once been dismissed as a dead, frozen world now seemed to vibrate with life, memory, or intelligence. Perhaps all three. Regardless of the explanation, one truth became undeniable. Mars was not passive, it was answering, and the consequences of this exchange began to ripple beyond the red planet. Earth's most sensitive radio telescopes soon began detecting faint echoes, subtle waves hidden in the cosmic background. These signals carried traces of Atlas's original message, but they were altered, reshaped by Mars's reply. The pattern of the dialogue now stretched across millions of kilometers, weaving a thread of communication between worlds and hinting at a reality far more complex and far more extraordinary than humanity had ever dreamed. Independent researchers posted their findings online, revealing unusual shapes hidden within the bursts of sound, but those posts vanished mysteriously within hours. Governments offered no explanations, and NASA remained silent. Yet, despite the attempts to hide it, the truth slipped out. Humanity was no longer just observing the cosmos from a distance. We were eavesdropping on a conversation between worlds, one that was never meant for us but was unfolding right before our eyes. As the signals grew stronger and Mars's replies became more defined, an unsettling idea took shape. Whatever Atlas asked, Mars responded to, and the consequences of that dialogue were already reaching Earth. Phobos and Deimos, Mars's two small moons, long believed to be nothing more than captured asteroids, had always been seen as dead, insignificant rocks orbiting a barren planet. But once Atlas's transmission arrived and Mars began to answer, something extraordinary happened. Instruments aboard spacecraft detected that Phobos was now emitting bursts of electromagnetic energy, synchronized perfectly with Mars's signals as if it were amplifying the conversation. Deimos, fainter and more distant, reacted differently. Its surface began to pulse with a soft green glow, appearing from Earth as flickers of light against the darkness. These weren't random reflections of sunlight. They were intentional, structured, and precise. The moons, once dismissed as irrelevant, were now active participants in the exchange. Scientists struggled to explain how such small, inactive bodies could interact with the signal at all, and yet the simplest explanation was also the most unsettling. It was as if everything orbiting Mars had suddenly awakened, as though the rocks, dust, and debris circling the planet had been waiting for a signal from Atlas all along. At first, the robotic explorers on Mars behaved normally, continuing their tasks of studying the soil, capturing images, and sending data back to Earth. But as the transmissions from Atlas grew stronger, their signals began to fail one by one. The first rover sent corrupted data filled with strange green lines. Another transmitted a final, blurry image of the horizon illuminated by an unfamiliar glow before going silent. Engineers on Earth made repeated attempts to restore contact, sending countless commands, but none of the robots responded. Then something even more unusual occurred. Just before shutting down, one of the machines transmitted a brief burst of data. That final message, when decoded, revealed a sequence of prime numbers identical to those found in Atlas's signals. The conclusion was clear. The rovers hadn't simply malfunctioned, they had somehow become synchronized with the signal, compelled to repeat the same mathematical language linking Atlas and Mars. The machines humanity had sent to explore another world had now become part of a greater message. Soon after the rovers went offline, Earth began picking up faint, unusual signals buried within the normal background noise of space. Radio telescopes in Australia, South Africa, and Chile detected weak bursts matching Atlas's frequency and the echoes from Mars. At first, these transmissions seemed like meaningless static, but deeper analysis revealed repeating prime number sequences, just like those the rovers had sent. Even more unsettling was the discovery that the signals grew stronger whenever certain regions of Mars faced Earth, suggesting that those areas were now functioning as transmitters themselves. Independent researchers quickly shared what they had found, but their reports vanished from the internet soon after. Still, enough information remained to confirm something extraordinary. The communication between Atlas and Mars had extended all the way to Earth. If our instruments could detect it, perhaps the message was meant to be noticed by us. As the transmissions intensified, the night sky began to reflect their presence. Observers on Earth reported seeing glowing shapes moving through Mars' thin atmosphere, visible even with powerful ground-based telescopes. Spirals, flower-like forms, and six-sided figures appeared briefly, shining like vast constellations made of light before fading away. Satellite images confirmed these phenomena and revealed that they appeared in perfect sync with the ongoing signals between Atlas and Mars. These luminous shapes were not random. They followed mathematical principles, including golden spirals and geometric patterns that mirrored designs seen in human architecture. The implication was unsettling. Atlas's transmission, now amplified by Mars, was no longer confined to electromagnetic signals. It was being expressed visually as well, drawn across the Martian sky in symbols that seemed to represent a universal language. The reality soon became impossible to ignore. This was no accident of nature. It was a deliberate message, and as the signals continued to strengthen, Mars itself responded more intensely. The planet, once silent and frozen, began to tremble with rhythmic quakes pulsing through its crust, each one perfectly synchronized with Atlas's signals. Scientists soon realized that the tremors beneath Mars weren't simple geological activity. They were structured, deliberate vibrations reaching deep into the planet's interior, as though Mars itself had become an amplifier, boosting the cosmic signal. The most astonishing discovery came when researchers converted the seismic waves into visual data. The resulting images revealed shapes identical to those long observed in Atlas's green light: spirals, triangles, and hexagons that seemed to originate from deep within Mars itself. For the first time, experts had to consider the unimaginable. Mars wasn't just mirroring the signal, it was actively participating, altering and merging with it from within its own crust. Something beneath the Martian surface had clearly activated, and the planet was no longer a passive receiver. It was awake. Soon, the evidence became visible even without advanced equipment. Both astronomers and ordinary observers began noticing faint green glows flickering above Mars, too organized and patterned to be natural. Bright, sweeping lights formed in the Martian sky, shaping vast arcs and curves visible from Earth with even modest telescopes. These lights pulsed in perfect time with Atlas's signals, each burst of energy carving new luminous lines across the planet's atmosphere. Mars appeared to be cloaked in green fire, a glowing testament to its growing connection with the interstellar visitor. Some dismissed the phenomenon as a simple atmospheric reaction, but others argued it was far too precise. The lights formed clear, intentional patterns, nested circles, step-like sequences, endless spirals, as if the sky itself had become a vast screen transmitting the message outward for any watchers to see. While people marveled at the glowing spectacle around Mars, a far more unsettling development began to unfold on Earth. Radio telescopes, radar arrays, and even everyday communication systems started to fail, each shutdown occurring in sync with the ongoing signals between Atlas and Mars. The data streams suddenly collapsed into static, and after a few minutes came back online. What remained were corrupted files streaked with strange green lines. Engineers reported that the interference was unlike anything they had seen before, spreading across multiple frequencies as if it were designed to cause maximum disruption. Even more unsettling was the pattern they noticed. Just before each failure, a faint echo of Mars's signal appeared. It was as though the planet's reply was leaking through space and directly affecting our technology. A chilling idea began to spread. If our instruments were responding to this exchange, then we were no longer just observers. We had become part of the signal itself. No one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone wondered, were our systems malfunctioning randomly, or were they being drawn into the same rhythmic pulse that had already claimed the Mars rovers? When pieces of the corrupted data were reconstructed, the results stunned the scientific community. Hidden within the chaotic noise was a structure far too deliberate to be natural. Sequences of prime numbers, precise repetitions, and sounds that aligned with mathematical forms, and even patterns resembling human programming languages. It looked remarkably similar to the type of universal message scientists had long theorized an intelligent civilization might use to communicate. The signal was not merely energy, it was information. What troubled researchers most was its origin. The initial burst came from Atlas, but the transformation, the point where raw energy became structured code, originated from Mars. The planet wasn't simply reflecting a message, it was altering it, shaping it, and sending its own response. For the first time in history, humanity was witnessing an active conversation between something from beyond our solar system and a planet within it. A dialogue never meant for us. As more seismic data arrived from Mars, scientists uncovered something even stranger. The vibrations weren't just confined to the surface. They were bouncing back from deep beneath the crust, as though striking vast hollow spaces below. Mapping these reflections revealed enormous voids arranged in geometric patterns, too precise to be natural. Some experts suggested they might be remnants of ancient volcanic activity, but others believed they resembled constructed chambers. Massive subterranean structures designed to amplify and transmit signals. A world once believed to be lifeless and still was now revealing that it could be awakened when the right signal arrived from the depths of space. And that moment had come. At the same time, something unusual began happening with Phobos, Mars's closest moon, long thought destined to slowly spiral inward and eventually crash into the planet. Its descent suddenly accelerated. Tracking stations confirmed that Phobos was no longer following a predictable orbit. Its path was subtly shifting in sync with the ongoing transmissions between Atlas and Mars. Even more puzzling were new high-resolution images showing faint glowing fissures spreading across its surface. Thin green lines radiating outward beneath its dusty crust. Some scientists speculated these were fractures caused by internal stress. Others believed it was something far stranger, as if Phobos were activating. Not just a dead rock, but a machine coming to life, responding to the same signal Mars was now sending back. The possibility arose that Phobos, once considered a doomed moon, might have been built for a purpose that was only now becoming clear. While researchers focused on the extraordinary events unfolding around Mars, Earth began to experience its own unsettling phenomena. Reports came in from remote deserts, mountain ranges, and open oceans of faint green lights shimmering in the night sky where none should exist. These lights pulsed in perfect time with the signals exchanged between Atlas and Mars. Amateur radio operators started intercepting strange bursts of static containing rhythmic patterns, eerie, almost melodic tones that seemed to echo the distant communication. Humanity was no longer just observing Mars change from afar. We were beginning to feel the effects ourselves. It was as if the ongoing dialogue between Atlas and Mars was expanding outward, drawing Earth into a network we neither understood nor could escape. And then a disturbing question began to spread. If Mars could respond to Atlas, could Earth be compelled to reply as well? As the anomalies intensified, scientists turned to ancient texts and forgotten records, desperate for any clue that might explain what was happening. Ancient civilizations such as the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Mayans told stories of twin stars, glowing green lights in the heavens, and deities descending upon the red planet in recurring cycles of destruction and rebirth. For centuries, these tales were dismissed as metaphors for agriculture, seasonal seasonal change or spiritual beliefs. But when researchers compared those ancient accounts to the timing of Atlas's energy bursts and Mars's responses, the parallels were disturbingly precise. Old carvings showed two spheres linked by beams of light. Ancient texts described a green serpent that spoke to Mars until the planet awoke with a roar. Some writings even contained geometric symbols identical to those formed by Atlas's resonant patterns. It no longer seemed like myth, it felt like memory, evidence that our ancestors might have witnessed the same phenomenon in the distant past. If that was true, Atlas's arrival and its communication with Mars were not unique events. They were part of a repeating cycle, and now it was happening again. Over the past months, people had watched Atlas, with its three glowing eyes, defy the laws of nature. It split into two parts, one heading toward the sun and the other toward Mars. From that moment on, the impossible became undeniable. What once appeared to be chaotic bursts of energy revealed themselves as deliberate, intelligent transmissions. And then, something even more extraordinary occurred. Mars responded. Through its atmosphere, through seismic tremors deep beneath its crust, and through its orbiting moons, the red planet echoed Atlas's message. But this was no simple acknowledgement. It was an ongoing exchange. Quake waves carved intricate patterns into the Martian interior. Lights traced mathematical symbols across its thin sky. Even Phobos shifted and glowed with green fissures, as if it were awakening from a slumber that had lasted thousands of years. As the mysterious energy continued to grow, its effects became impossible to ignore. Earth itself began to react. Green lights appeared in places they had never been seen before. Machines malfunctioned under unusual interference, and faint sounds resembling mathematical sequences and spirals crept into background signals. The communication had spread beyond Mars and Atlas. It was everywhere now, and whether we wanted to be part of it or not, we were. Ancient texts that once seemed like myths now read more like warnings, echoes from civilizations that may have witnessed this before. They spoke of a serpent of green light speaking to Mars, of twin lights in the heavens, of cosmic changes powerful enough to reshape entire worlds. If those records were true, then Atlas's arrival was no accident. It had returned, as it always had, part of a cycle that began long before humanity existed. NASA's silence, their withheld data, disrupted transmissions, and refusal to speak only added weight to the growing belief that they knew the truth. Atlas was not a simple comet, nor a wandering piece of debris. It was a messenger, a catalyst, something that awakened silent worlds and compelled planets to communicate. Now that Mars has answered, there is no longer any doubt that Atlas is real. The only question that remains is what comes next. If Mars is awake, and Earth is beginning to resonate with the same patterns, then this is only the beginning. Atlas sent the first message, Mars responded, and now with each passing signal, we must face the chilling possibility that the next reply could come from Earth itself.